We are going to show you the basics of Microsoft projects. First of all, let's start the tool itself. So start. You see that we have MS Project. So we start it. Now it has opened. So what you see here is the first welcome screen that you get. So you will need here to choose a blank project. Once you've chosen a blank project, the screen comes like that, where you see that you can define tasks, resources, you can have reports, generalities about the project, views and formats. This is one part on which we'll do selections. Here below is what is called the timeline. The timeline, we'll see it as something that is really useful. Here below, the first view that you see is what is called the Gantt chart. With the Gantt chart, we will be able here to have tasks, and here we'll have some diagrams that will show us how the tasks are scheduled. But before that we go ahead and we start to key in any information, we have to go first to the backstage. This is really important that in the beginning, when you open your project for the first time, there are a number of options to be checked. The first option to check for me, and what I noticed with my students, were the calendars, the schedule. What does it mean? You see that, for example, here the daily work rate is 7 hours. So people are going to work 7 hours. In some European countries, we prefer to have this set to 8 hours, and here we prefer also to have this set to 40 hours and 20-day a month. If you don't do that at the beginning of your work with MS Project, you'll have a lot of trouble coming back to a sane situation after that. So this is done with the schedule. Another option that you might want to change is here in the display. It's the currency you want to work with. For us, we are here in Swiss francs, which is fine for us, but you could here decide to change and to go to euros or US dollars, for example. So we won't change any other of the options for the moment. So we are back now in the project environment, and we can maybe start to enter some tasks that we want to have in our project. So as a good rule, it's the first task, it's to be the name of the project. So my project, I call it simply my project. This is a first task. And let's say after in a certain project, when you start, you first have an ID, so there is a moment when you need to do initiation. So I'm going to set it here. So it's initiation. During the initiation, it's the time when I think what do you want to do in the project, and also to see what it's going to cost, how long it's going to last. After this, I will plan the project by itself, and after, let's say that I start to do the project. So it's what I like to call execution. During execution, as an example, we could be first defining, then there will be something like called design, then we can have something like integration, and then we have something like test, you see. And once we've done all those things, we can say that if it's a product or a service, we will release the product. Once we've done all that, it's a good way to close a project So I have something that I call close. So these are the different tasks I have in that project here. As you can see, I named them, and now I'm going to do a first thing. It's that I'm going to say, okay, all those ones are parts of my project. So I will ident them, giving a hierarchical dependency about my project. So I move it here, and you can see here that I can ident some tasks. So I'm going to ident them, and as you see, you have my project, which contains tasks which are initiation, plan, execution, defining, design, integration, test, release of the product, and close. Okay? So we said also that execution is composed of different tasks. So I'll do something similar here by taking the part which is called definition. From definition to test, I will also say that these are included in what I call the execution. So I ident them the same. Like that, I have a certain hierarchy in all that. So now that I've done those parts, I can say, okay, let's say that for initiation, I need 1 week. For the planning and all what is necessary, 2 weeks. Then after, to define, we'll need 1 week again. To design it, we might maybe need 4 weeks. To do the integration, we might need 2 weeks. And we'll add 3 weeks of tests. 3 weeks of tests. And then we release the product itself. So this is 0 day in itself, and then we close the project. As you can see, we have here now in the graphical part of the diagram the tasks with their duration that has come and has been shown. So far it's fine. So now we are going to give some order in all that. So we could say that we are facing something that is simply sequential, and we could go from here to the last task and say that in the end they are all linked together. So they are all linked by dependencies, as you see here. I'm going to go down here and to move slightly the bar. I can here in that area zoom a bit less. Like that I'll be able to see all the bars. You see that I slowly bring it back, not too much. As you can see here, we have some anomalies that happen. This task should follow that one here, and so on. So the reason for that situation, it's that it's due to this column. You see here that we have the task mode. The task mode, when you have the needle, it means that it is on manual schedule. Manually scheduling thing means that where you place the starting date is really a restriction. It will really start on that. It's like if you have a wall in between the date and what was done previously. So I move this to Autoschedule, that one also. As you can see, the color has changed. From a light blue it has become a bit a darker blue. So once we've done that, we'll also follow here below, and it's now that you will see a change. So I go to Autoschedule. You see that it moves automatically, which I will also follow to do here, and all the following tasks will be set to Autoschedule. With this, we have now an aspect of a really sequential project. One important thing is maybe to think, okay, you see my project starts here on the 29th October. Maybe I would like to have a different start date. You go into project information and you see here that you have the start date. So let's say our project, we want to have it to start on the 1st of November, for example. So I select the 1st November and I can just apply here, and we'll see below what happens on the screen. You see that all the project was now shifted to somewhere which is 1st of November. Once we've done that, we have the sequences of the elements in my project, and I might now need to have some people work, or resources if you want. So you see here into the tasks, I will use another view which is called the resource sheet. On the resource sheet I can enter here people. So I will say, okay, I maybe need an engineer, which is engineer 1. I maybe have an engineer 2, which is here. And you see that you have their standard rates here, which are defined. You have their availability, which is here for the project. They are the two working 100% on that project. And maybe we have somebody who is doing the test. So we'll call the function test user 1. I could have had names. I could put a Dave, a Paul, a Peter, a John, but I prefer to have function definitions, because like that whoever is engineer 1 can be defined later on. So once this is done, I can now switch back to the Gantt view, and here you will see that I can add resources. So let's say here that the initiation, you will see I decide that in the initiation we have engineer 1 and engineer 2, because it's always good that people talk together. For the planning I will take the same. It's engineer 1 mostly that will be in charge of it. Defining will be again engineer 1 and engineer 2. The design by itself will be done by engineer 2. Integration, it will be again engineer 1 and engineer 2. And finally the tests, it will be engineer 2 and the test user. Like that I have defined resources. What you can see, it's that on the diagram itself we have the names of who is going to perform the task. So we'll go back shortly to the resource sheet to see some information we can get there. As you can see, we can apply a certain rate to each of the resource. So I'm going to pass the rate to 100 Swiss francs or euros or dollar. I make it simple. I consider each resource is to cost 100 per hour. You could also add overtime rates, but this we are going to see it in another lesson. Now I go back to the Gantt chart, and nothing did change for the moment. I'm going here to enlarge a bit, and I'm going to add a column. Insert a column. And here we can see almost like a magic, the costs have been calculated by MS Project by itself. So this is simply due to the fact that we've added resources. They multiply the resources by the working time and multiply it by the hour rate. So with that, with the structure I did, you can see that those tasks which are highlighted are summarizing tasks, as we can say. This means that if you do the calculation of all the costs of the execution part, then you will end up with those 56,000. If you do the calculation of all the project tasks, you will end up with those 70,000, which means that by having had first the name of the project at the first tasks and having a hierarchical dependencies, the cost of the first task is in itself the cost of the project. Now that our project is scheduled, that resources have been attributed, and that we have the budget for the project, we can do what we call set the baseline. To set the baseline is like taking a picture of the project plan at a certain moment. This will be helpful to us in comparisons that we'll do later on. So you see here there is a button which is called set baseline, and will set the baseline. Now this project started, we are moving ahead with that project, and we are doing the follow-up. Let's admit that we are advancing the task of initiation and that this task has been completed. So I can come here, select the task, and say OK, 100% completed. Then I can say, for example, that the plan itself has also been done, and I want to say OK, the plan is also completed at 100%. For that, I go in the task itself. It's another way to do it, and I can say here directly in there 100%. Now let's admit that we've advanced more and that we look at what is happening at what should be the beginning of the design. So this is supposed to be the 26th of November. So we set the date at which we want to do the status of the project. So we do the status at the 26th November. Like that. Okay. And now we look what happened. At the phase of definition, let's admit that there we've done just half of the work. So we've done 50% of that work. So you see it covered 50% of the work with a darker bar inside, which is showing the advancement of the project. Now we are going to use tracking Gantt. With the tracking Gantt, you will see that the diagrams will be slightly different. So what you see here is a second gray bar that shows what was initially planned. So as you can see here, the blue is what has been done, and the gray is the baseline. So we see here comparisons to the baseline. So we have done here our comparison, and we see that we have advanced by 50% of the task. Let's see now if we say that the task, instead of taking 1 week, has taken, let's say, 2 weeks. You see that things have been moved, and you see that here is coming the real path of the project, meaning that you see that the task has taken longer, and you have as gray the reference that was still there as we had planned the schedule of that project. All those lines have been moved to pink lines since this is the critical path in the project. So by doing this, you can really follow your project and always come back and compare it to what was the baseline. With that in mind, I think you are ready to go and to start your own projects. So far, so good. See you soon!